In this real side experience, coming to my house would be two individuals dressed as cops. Our recreated homes represent the consciousness on the real side, and so, as we find individuals entering our houses, so we can determine the agreements and attachments we have with others that allow that they can, as the idea of them must be a consciousness installed, present then in our houses, that they can feature in what effects from them our experiences, and according to where in the house they do feature, so we can realize the nature of the agreement, that which we are fully conscious of. They are found then on the ground floors, or perhaps agreements with others we are unconscious of, and that feature in the unseen dimensions, the upper floors, including the subconscious, the back garden, etc. And so it follows that as beings knock on the door, as an example, that request access, that they cannot simply feature through agreements which serve as permanent open doors to them, that they then are desiring agreement, that they can operate within our experiences. As the cops entered my house, my real awareness impressions revealed that they were in actuality real guides, as many times will the guides operate in the visual forms of police officers or even the military. The representation that of the strict focus and steely discipline that most military outfits demand. The real guides are 100% focused with what makes sense with life, and demonstrate this through these outer forms and outfits they assume. For indeed, the guides had serious matters to attend to in this experience. For as they thrust a laptop-style computer into my hands, revealed on the screen was a dark force individual who was responsible for creating all manner of detrimental computer-like viruses, the effects of which would be damaging but beneficial to the controlling systems were they successfully transmitted. The individual appeared to be an Oriental human, perhaps Chinese, a young, early 20s female, but she wasn't as harmless, physical body-wise, as she might appear, for she was in fact a shape-shifting reptilian, a far more formidable body type she could become at any moment than the human form she tended to masquerade as. She had an extreme technological ability and advanced developed intellect. Her specialty was computers, and with the reptilians you can be assured this was a far greater skill than, say, the average human computer specialist, and part of her area of expertise was designing these technological impacting viruses, and this particular virus was of an exceptionally complex design, for which only she had the ability to create and make available for installing into computer systems. As such, through the karma effects she had created for herself, through her dubious dark force affiliated activities and choices, so the guides could manage this karma in such a way that they would be able to incarcerate her, to put her out of the way. Not a phantom zone placement, but something of a similar nature, where she could no longer present as interference or in any way able to damage or even destroy technology and computer systems. She was one of the most advanced reptilian scientists in regards to virus idea coding applications. This wouldn't be a violation of a free will of experiences as decided by her. The guides were simply altering the effects she had decided for herself, effects along similar lines of that which she would have manifested for herself as a result of her poor life choices. Although the guides could easily then have apprehended her with little fuss, they had the effects, the karma to play with in this creative, removing her out of the way manner, but they rather elected instead to turn it into somewhat of an adventure. The ultimate conclusion would be the same, and if a more elaborate and involved means to the same objective fails to work, they can just as simply remove her anyway. For I and a team were assigned the task of apprehending her, and as we are brought into such an opportunity, so we can become more aware and more capable as we go about it, and we have a further overall idea simulation of comparisons to recognize the is, by, etc. Our actions along the lines of that which is life beneficial, so reflected is our own facilitated awareness process, we earn our way, and so forth. This reptilian scientist also had been cloned seemingly. The clone was in possession of a complete replicated version of the consciousness of the scientist we were seeking. Essentially, at the moment of the clone's inception, would it be then operating in its traits, mannerisms, the knowledge and skills compiled, habits and attitudes, in exactly the same way as the original body form, but from there, so the awareness animating through the forms, the personal selves, if both are personal self-consciousness immersed only, as was the case here, would begin to make their own individual choices in addition to the exact same created consciousness and personality they were animating, and oftentimes clones then may diverge even drastically in their choices and develop further traits, characteristics and attitudes unique to them. This would be the case here, where, although the cloned consciousness and affected body form were then of a dark force persuasion and intentionality, the clone in fact, or rather the awareness operating through what was simply another vehicle in creation, would in actuality choose to step up, become more aware, and sing the new you song. And with the clones, regardless of their diverging interests, they will be connected, intrinsically linked, in that they can have the ability then to locate each other, regardless of how far they may be creationally placed apart. We had then our own sniffer dog, so to speak, as the guides now brought forth into my presence the very stepping up clone, identical to the female reptilian and boasting the same skills, technical know-how and shape-shifting abilities, her primary base form being a reptilian as with the original. She then would be our guide. A group of other aware beings and myself following her across multi-dimensional creation as we pursued the dangerous scientist, intent on her capture and containment. At one point, we would enter a very sci-fi looking dark force laboratory where the very scientist we were seeking was working, and an almighty battle would ensue between the scientist and her clone, as they both were rather spiteful of each other, as each shared somewhat conflicting interests. It was rather a spectacle to behold, both with shape-altering ability, which they utilized in an effort to nullify each other, both changing their forms and constantly assuming body types more formidable in a bid to gain the upper hand. During this altercation, the original scientist was able to disengage from her clone long enough that she could create a portal for herself and vacate the scene and laboratory, relocating to another position. She couldn't outrun her clone, no matter how far she fled, linked as she was with it. And so the group and I, led by the determined clone, tracked the scientist to another location. She had concealed herself in a vast, abandoned building of a kind. She seemed either unrealizing that she could be tracked, or more likely overestimated her abilities where self-concealment was concerned. For although hidden in the building, large as I said, she was in fact trapped, as the group and I would seal the only two exits. I was taking the lead now, and through communication devices the entire team and the clone possessed, did I coordinate our apprehending of the scientist's efforts. I would be talking directly, face to face, with a member of the team who was charged with sealing the only two exits with a kind of glowing substance that not only sealed the exits, but served as a kind of repelling force field that prevented the ability of anyone to even approach the exit, let alone escape through them. That although I never would see the moment of the scientist's capture, impressions were it was a foregone conclusion, the only escape routes sealed, and my team were systematically sweeping the interior of the building. It was only a matter of time, and like I said, this was rather an exaggerated and really unnecessary apprehending method, but for the reasons I mentioned earlier, this was what was decided by the guides, and even if our operation did fail, they simply could then step in and directly deal with the scientist. No clones, tracking, or force fields required. Either way, she was destined for phantom zone style containment that she no longer could produce and create technology damaging or manipulating idea files or viruses. And indeed, the added bonus of us establishing a contact with her clone, one of an extraordinary degree of scientific and technological know-how, just as the soon-to-be apprehended scientist possessed, a skill set that may prove valuable indeed, that she may be quite the asset, as she was deciding to step up and assist the guides in whatever capacity she was able.
Okay, Kevin, that was pretty scary, but it's good. So getting others to agree is a handful, isn't it? So that's so cool, but this is what we do. Yes, I do it too. And a lot of maneuvering and creativity goes into this to see if people will step up a little bit, etc. the boys coming into your house there and doing what they're doing, providing, you know, in a way, a little threat, showing people what they're doing and what's going on. And are you sure you want to keep doing this, or do you want to do better? So again, the point comes to where we are now. And the end result will be whatever. So even those that choose to start doing the new you, there's no guarantee they're going to keep doing it. They've been working with these other outfits for lifetimes, and they're very embedded. So this is a big step for us too. This is all a big challenge. It's all a big challenge. It's all risk-taking. The earth is just a ball with things going, you know, happening, going on here and there, whatever. Okay, so realistically, all I see is recognizing that comparatively, because that's all, and more so even than any of the experiences that we're having. But in the meantime, these experiences help us get along to where we become more stable with what's real, because it's also invisible and endless. And so cool, Kevin. Thank you so much.